Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another It'll Be For You Fine Wednesday morning. For us, it's a fine Tuesday morning. And welcome to another Coffee Break Chat. I'm your host, James Jackson, he, they pronouns, executive producer, Light Thief Productions. We've got a great show for you today. This show will wrap up the season for us. It's a little weird to talk about seasons, and people are always like, "Well, what's a season?" And the season for us is kind of wraps around election time because there's not a lot to talk about either in arts or in politics over the holidays because people are doing their traditional holiday shows in the arts and they usually don't have anything interesting to say about them. And people are doing they're wrapping up from their election season in politics. So the news isn't usually so big or bold, or what's happening is just kind of fait accompli. So we wrap our season here and we pick up in the spring when people start their spring shows and start promoting them. So that's a season for us. We've done a ton of shows over the last several years. And I'm really proud of them. I think that we have something good going on here. And I look forward to picking up in the spring with you all. So if you like what you've been seeing, please subscribe to us on Blue Sky, on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Live Push. Yes, I still call it Twitter. We're still on there for now. I don't know what'll happen in the next couple of months, but we just push our content. We don't really interact with Twitter, but you'll see us on there if you're subscribed to us. Today we're going to be talking self-sufficiency or community collaboration, how evolution predicts the election. I've got some sociological thought along those lines. And we'll be talking with special guest Sebastienne of White Box Theater about Key and the Ark. I'm gonna bring Sebastienne on screen. Welcome, and if you would please introduce yourself, your pronouns, what it is you do.
My name is Sebastienne Mundheim. My pronouns are she, her, and I make interdisciplinary storytelling.
Awesome. Thank you. And I got the title right. I know I mistyped it on the title card. Kia and the Ark. Tell us a little bit about Kia and the Ark.
Kia and the Ark is it's a 60-minute performance. It was commissioned by the Art Yard in 2022, and it premiered in 23 at the Art Yard. It's the story of a woman who lived in Newark, New Jersey, at least for 30 years of her life. She lived there, and she built an 86-foot-long, 3-story tall ark single-handedly. And so we use puppets. Daniel DeJesus plays electric cello and sings. I work with Peyton Smith, Kennedy Kandra, Daniel DeJesus, and we sort of have a beautiful installation of paper objects, and they come to life through puppetry and music and dance and story.
Awesome. You've been doing puppetry and dance and paperwork for a long time. What brought you to those mediums? Why do you use those mediums so much?
Well, I started making performance because I was asked to do some museum education. I was really a visual artist first, and I studied painting in college. And I didn't really want to make art alone in a studio. And I was invited to do some teaching with kids. And I sort of found that I could do everything I liked working with kids and I could break things down and make each step meaningful through teaching.
Mm-hmm.
There was kind of like a crazy organized fun in building things with other people. And so I was doing that kind of work with kids in New Orleans and Philadelphia, and the Arthur Ross Gallery at Penn asked if I would do some museum education, and I was afraid that I might be boring standing up and talking in front of people. So I thought, well, maybe I should make some objects to make myself more clear, and maybe I should have kids do movement with me to keep them engaged. And then eventually, a couple efforts later, I thought it would really be better if there was a musician who worked with me. And so I sort of established other modes of storytelling in hopes of keeping kids more engaged. And as I did that, I found myself really seduced by building things with my hands. It was something I always liked to do. And I sort of evolved into the performance community that way. I was also very serious about martial arts. And so kind of using breath to fill a room, having a kind of efficient lines of movement, all of those things were interesting to me. And part of my living vocabulary. And so those techniques, and maybe because I've been working with kids and using, am I facing the wrong way?
No,
Right.
you're fine.
Using non-toxic materials, I just continue to work that way. And I sort of think it's more ethical anyway. And there's something kind of, I guess, I live somewhere between taking what I do really seriously and feeling like nothing's that serious in a way. And so I want to keep my materials simple and my attention more complex or more, sometimes I look at the things that we use and they're really so simple, but the movement that animates the objects is so sophisticated and considered. I think that's kind of what you asked me. I don't know what you asked me. You asked me why I use paper. I use paper because it's inexpensive. It has a wonderful life to it. It's fragile. And when you work with things that are fragile or ephemeral, your performers have to have a lot of care. And I think that kind of care and commitment to a communal moment translate. And I think that is that no matter what story we tell, the fact that we're incredibly committed to it, and that there's, you were talking about kind of community versus the individual earlier, and I think our practice is so much about that. Like, we make so much happen with nothing but our own labor and
Right.
commitment to each other, and so I do think, and that's, in small ways, it's incredibly hopeful. And I think those things communicate, even if we're telling a sad story, for example.
Yeah, yeah. What what would you say? So I often ask this when it's kind of a cop out question, and I apologize. I often ask this when I don't necessarily know what else to ask. But why this piece? Why now? Why Kia and the Ark, and why tell this story in this moment?
So uh, I didn't pick this Kia's story. Jill Kearney at Art Yard saw an exhibition about Kia's life at Galleria Frero in Newark. And Jill was really moved by this exhibition. The Ark that Kia built doesn't exist anymore. And actually, sort of artifacts of Kia's life were pulled out of a dumpster. And the people around her thought she was maybe more important than she thought of herself. And so, I mean, I guess that's true for all kinds of people, but makers in particular, not always. But anyway, Kia and Jill was attracted to Kia's story because she was so much of our time. I mean, she has so many things about her that make her story relevant. Kia was a displaced person. She She may have lived in Japan. Many things about her story are a little unclear, but she may have lived in internment camps. She spent some time on a Hopi reservation, and she was orphaned. Um, and she seems to have kind of found her way to Newark in a circuitous way, and then was really a person with very little resource who lived as an outsider, and she was very uh, she was a real activist. I mean, sometimes she sat on government steps and protested housing, and she was by herself. She would she was a real advocate for people who were moved out of their homes through gentrification. She was always creating alternative living spaces for herself and grand plans. I mean, she made all kinds of drawings for communal living, for hospitals that took care of elderly people. I mean, she was really concerned with how to care for people who didn't have resource. Um, and her arc was a manifestation of that in many ways. Her arc was built from pieces of homes that were abandoned by people either during the uprisings of the late 60s, and later people who were encouraged, coerced to leave in order to have urban renewal. And so, you know, her arc as a monument to people who did not, one of the things Kia said is, there's no place left on land for me. I've built this arc because there's no place left on land. And her arc was built from homes of people who also were having that experience in one way or another. So, I mean, she's certainly a person whose life and whose life interests ask or address a lot of the questions that we're really interested in right now. And, you know, of course, also the arc as a response to flooding in the original story, feels pretty relevant too. I mean, we certainly have to think about radical alternatives to how we live.
What would you hope, you know, like when you imagine an audience member coming to see this, what would you hope they take away? What would be your best wish for what somebody would see or feel or do as a result of coming to see this?
Well, I think a lot of things. I mean, I don't feel like this piece has a lot of messaging in it, but we've presented it now. We presented it at Art Yard. We presented it at the Kohler Arts Foundation in Wisconsin twice, and we presented it down at the Delaware Contemporary. So I guess I have a little bit of an expectation of what people walk away with based on what I've heard from, you know, the people who've seen it so far. And I think what people walk away with, one is a curiosity about this person, and they research her more and find out more things. I think, I hope that people have a sense of community, honestly, because I really think theater does that. You know, you experience something together and you talk to the people who experienced it with you. So curiosity, community, and honestly, both from Kia and maybe from the way we the invention in our storytelling, I think there's something that's hopeful, weirdly hopeful, and that kind of like suspends reality, and you feel, I don't know, the magic of doing things together. I think our show does that because you sit there and watch very simple materials transport you to a world um, that isn't there if it weren't for your imagination and ours.
Um,
So,
I wanna give people a look at you sent along a trailer. I wanna give people a quick look at that the framework that you provide, I would say, and take a look at that, and then let's talk about where people can experience this. Awesome.
No
So
sound in that, and it's okay, but I do want everybody to know that Daniel De Jesus is an incredible musician, and our trailer actually just, it has a tiny bit of synth in it, but Daniel plays electric cello, and it's awesome, and Daniel sings. We're performing at Theater Exile, which is in South Philadelphia at 13th and Reed. It's a wonderful, intimate black box theater, and we've performed this show at the Art Yard, where we had 170 people, both shows, which was full capacity, and at the Kohler, where we had also a small theater, but 85. This is going to be tiny, tiny, tiny. We probably won't be able to fit more than 35 or 40 people per show. So it's going to be immersive and intimate. And we encourage people to, bring a snack and a drink and hang out afterwards with each other. There's lots of space to do that at Theater Exile.
so Theater Exile, and tickets can be found on Theater Exile's website or on yours?
Tickets can be found on our website. On Theater Exile's website too, but come straight to ours.
Okay.
Because I've looked at that more recently, and I know that on. Don't I have a QR code somewhere?
Meg will post it in the link in our chats when this goes live tomorrow. So she'll post the link about now. Let's talk about community. So you're talking about how you got involved in paperwork, theater, puppetry, because you were working as an individual artist. Oftentimes in traditional upbringing in the arts, we end up kind of going through this kind of what I would say is an adolescence in the arts, where we're trained to explore artistic practice and try and find our own medium, find our own expression. But then, as you said, and as many artists experience, you didn't want to be working in a studio alone, making paintings. What? Why? Why would? Why would an artist? Why would anybody seek collaborative methodology? Why did you feel that you needed collaboration to get your messages across?
Well, I want to respond to a couple of things there. First of all, I studied painting because I had to graduate. I didn't really want to study painting. I always, and there is a place for solitude. I mean, I started when I wish I could send you this video clip. It's so great. But the whole time in my childhood, when I had a difficult time, I don't know, with my mom or whatever, like I would go to my room and make little characters and get very involved in inventing worlds that, got me away from the complexity of relationships. And also just, it wasn't just that, but you're curious about materials and how will this thing become, this thing I found on the street, look, this little broken glass looks like the way that water sparkles, and can I glue it all together and make, a waterfall or what, some other thing I might have done when I was 11. But I always loved materials. I had a lot of focus for making things, and sometimes I wanted to get away. And sometimes I wanted to make something for somebody. So, you're thinking about them. And so there are lots of reasons to be alone. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I studied painting because I was a pre-architecture student, and I ended up not wanting to graduate in that, and I just collected all my 2D art credits and got a degree in painting. So I wasn't really like wanting to. And by the way, I love painting now, and I love doing it alone. But and because there's no pressure, it's just, and I can. But anyway, and I'm so glad I learned about it. I feel like it's such a gift to my way of seeing the world. But when I started working with kids, I mean, I did like facilitating. There were two parts. I would say I liked facilitating their thinking and making and their joy and the energy of a lot of people. And frankly, I mean, there was also like a selfish part where I had a vision of like, wouldn't it be cool if, and there's something very great about having 12 pairs of hands make the thing instead of one, like things big things happen with groups of people that you can't do by yourself. Um, and it took me a long time to really, a lot of us talk about collaboration and we're not really honest because we're not really that. I certainly didn't start out being that interested in what the people I thought I was a collaborator, but really I was really hierarchical, and I just didn't know. I didn't know how to I don't know, like love what other people had to bring, trust that everybody had something to offer. But one of the most delightful things in my kind of personal journey as a human being, in being in the performing arts and being around dancers. I mean, I think people in theater, people in dance understand this in different ways, but certainly the people that I've been attracted to are very interested in a devising process. And it's like, it's so exciting to get into a room with people and let everybody invent something and kind of watch those things come together. Like one thing I do now a lot around developing new work is I I start by having everybody do automatic writing around a topic, and we read out loud to each other, and then we write about what we think about then after hearing everybody. And then we do it again, and we do it again. And it's very interesting how over a series of sessions like that, um, of course, people's ideas blend, and you start to have like you become committed to a collective vision. And I'm very careful about time. When I do that, maybe we have 5 minutes to write, and then everybody gets to read exactly what they wrote in 5 minutes, and there's no discussion, or if there is, people have a time chunk. So it's very evenly distributed in terms of input, at least time container wise. And it sort of gives you this great appreciation and interest for other people's perspectives. And it is interesting to watch how in small groups you sort of develop a collective view, and excitement and commitment. And, the same kind of thing happens in movement and sound. And when I'm developing visual ideas, I mean, I'm fairly domineering when it comes to that, but I do like to, I mean, I'm also insecure and overwhelmed when I start. So maybe I'll get 10 people in the room and I'll say, or 6 people, and say, like, I have this idea that we could build a bird like this, and I'll have a design. And then I just want everyone to do the same thing. And they all turn out a little bit differently. I mean, it comes out of teaching. But again, as you do that, you look around the room and everybody learns a little something from somebody else, or that person made a hinge really well, or that person had a really interesting idea about feathers or whatever. And so there is this kind of collective learning. Everybody gets to make, what I like about all of these ways is that everybody gets their own kind of discrete opportunity to explore their own thinking. And then we influence each other. But you do have that chance. If you write down all your thinking, it's very private. You're allowed to say whatever you want, especially when it's automatic. You don't have a lot of time to judge. And I'm the same about the way I make movement and the way I make objects. So yeah, it's just a very pleasurable experience. And it's interesting. My memory feels like it's gotten really terrible with age. And I never, like when I'm not doing the Kia show, I can't really remember anything about it. I just don't. I mean, I have photos, and so I go, oh yeah, right, it looked like that. And I dread doing it because I think it can't be that important if I can't remember it, you know? Um, and then everybody gets in the room and we start to do this thing that we made together. And it's like, it's so, it's like when birds come from all directions and they together. It's sort of like, wait, we just made, like, this thing doesn't exist without us all here doing that little thing that we do, but then we all get to participate in this magic. And
Yeah,
so,
I think most collaborative processes are similar in that there's this syncopation phase where everybody comes together and starts moving in the same direction, and there's an individuality even in bird movement in syncopation when birds flock. And move in syncopation, they're all moving as individuals, but they're all influencing their neighbor, which is a fascinating. If any of you watching haven't ever studied syncopation or even like looked into it briefly, go ahead and do it. It's pretty cool stuff, and scientists are learning a lot more about communal and group behavior by studying syncopation in birds. But the what I'd like to talk about is kind of the divide in modern politics, especially current politics, and I think this is somewhat globally applicable. I was talking with my wife the other day, and we were talking about the prospect of, say, spending some time in Spain or Germany or Japan. We're raising a 3-year-old, and a lot of the changes that are coming to the way our society works are aimed at her age group, and making what I know of society and what my wife knows of society completely different for her age group. So how do we curate an experience for her that we would hope that she has? And she pointed out that there's lots of right-wing movements, autocratic movements, fascist movements around the world at the moment. That there, seems to be this same reaction globally. And where might that come from? So that got me thinking about where that might come from. And what it boils down to me, and feel free to disagree with me if you do, is the difference between people who are individually minded, and people who are community minded. There's kind of a sociological expectation, and I think somewhat born of actually just born of evolution, that young men, especially, and primarily young men, are driven to be individualistic, to become experts at their own thing, and to act act individualistically, not to not seek out collaboration, to not seek out help. Whereas anybody who's faced with insurmountable odds, like you were saying how in the arts, like you have, if you have a grand vision, obviously it's going to be easier for 12 people to accomplish that grand vision than for one person to accomplish that grand vision. So you kind of automatically, as a human being, when you're faced with a project that's too big for you to handle yourself, automatically go out and seek a community with people. And for people of color, for people of all sorts of minority description, for people who have um, been what's the word, sidelined, I guess. It's kind of a natural result. Like you go out and you seek community to try and help your neighbor so that they help you. Where you get the arc, because this one person decided that helping her neighbors, she would get help in be continuing to be alive and be human. Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, I got to tell you, I was raised by an educator
Mm-hmm.
and a legal educator. So my instinct is always to offer the opposing point of view. So
Yeah,
I just
no, yeah, absolutely. Go
it
ahead.
doesn't necessarily have to do with my values, but I will challenge you in what you're saying, parts of it. Because I think that there are many white men who participate in teams,
Sure.
who participate in, who have a very strong sense of interdependence in the military. I'm picking things on purpose that are, that are often considered politically different. Church and unions, laborers. There are many, many men who are in brotherhoods and unions.
And I would agree with you. And
I don't want to pull this too far away because I do want to also, I mean, I think there's value in what you're saying. I just can't not
so
soften the
I
divide a little
agree with
bit.
those. I agree with those examples. And what I would say is that we had last week we had a union member, two union members, and myself. I'm not in a union, but I believe in unions. We had a former military member was one of the union members, um, and I'm come from a military family. And yeah, I acknowledge that men do seek community and brotherhood at a certain point in their life. But what I would challenge is go ahead.
Let me because I didn't get to finish because
Oh,
like
sorry.
ultimately I don't disagree with you. I do feel like the kind of feminist collaborative uh way of understanding ourselves is is different from the way that mostly capitalist societies organized and that people are encouraged to be, and people who are set up to succeed in that system believe the system more than those that are not, for lots of reasons, racism, sexism included, that we find other ways, and those ways end up being satisfying, and they're effective at doing things sometimes within the capitalist system, but often by creating meaning in other ways. And I mean,
And,
to be in the arts, to be a woman,
I would say
certainly like
to
gives me that. So I think, yeah, I mean, I just couldn't, I spent like a good 10 years feeling this kind of naming the divide. And I feel now like um focusing on what is working and what feels like, I'm going to say something really corny, but what feels like love.
mm,
Um, and I am much less interested in describing the evil. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be, but it's not something that I find myself gravitating toward.
sure,
And
okay.
so, yeah, and I want to say something about moving away. And this is just, it's not that I've thought deeply about it. I mean, I've also thought about getting my Latvian citizenship and moving, but I sort of like wonder also if, you know, maybe maybe it's important to be here. I mean, I guess it depends how truly threatened you feel, but if you feel like you can stay and maintain your values and create community, that it's actually important for the country, or if you care about country, or for a continuation of something that is here.
Well, okay, so there's a lot there for me to talk about. I want to go back to what you said, as far as yes, there are organizational methodologies in which men specifically tend to come together in a communal effort. But what I would say is that all of us, whether male or female, or male identifying or female identifying, or whatever, non-identifying, I think that we all, as your point earlier, your artistic practice, go through a period, or even consistently go through cycles of individualism where you're concentrating on your area of expertise, or your thought process turns internal. And I think that's kind of a necessary part of humanity, of being. I just think that it's focused on and pushed as the way of being by society for young men. Young men are not supposed to,
Yeah.
in a Eurocentric, Christo-fascist sort of society. You're not supposed to, as a young man, seek out the help of others. You're supposed to sit there and grind away and do your thing, right? Um,
No, it's all totally fair. I mean, like I said, I just couldn't, I think it's helpful in general. I mean, I think it's good in conversation, and it's important to be able to
yeah, no, no, absolutely.
toss
Like,
out the opposite, just to
yeah,
for all of
it
us to
clears out
clarify.
the, like, if there's an argument, against the point, then obviously, you should address it. That way you can think about it. Because if you don't think about it, like, yeah.
I mean, I think it's really important to. I was talking to Deborah Block at Theater Exile, the artistic director over there, and we talked about how to have conversations about things that are difficult, and the importance of understanding, as we do in script writing, the fact that the script evolves and that you call this conversation a draft, and so you can put something that the conversation's constantly moving. And I want to just pull this back to the creative process, because I think like one of the things that's really helpful about being in the studio environment and creating things that did not exist before you made the show, is that you have to try ideas out, and you have to say like, what happens if I do this? What happens if I challenge that idea? And just to be able to test it and not be told that's ugly or that's stupid or whatever. So I think like challenging, can I stay in this squat position this long to um move this puppet, or will my knees give out? Like you've got to be able to challenge, and in a safe, safe environment. We don't have to rip each other apart to test out ideas.
Definitely. And that's why I have these conversations in the first place. I think it's important. Everybody can agree, like you can always agree, and it's not, it's easy, it's better to have a conversation around your thought process, than to just agree and move on. Anyway,
Bad for the thoughts. It's bad for the thoughts,
right.
right? Because they don't evolve.
Yeah.
But it's not great to have a conversation where a piece of it, not that I'm worried about that here, but I mean, the problem with having those conversations in public forums is also that someone grabs a section of what you've said and then wants to be polarizing. And I think it's really important, I mean, whatever. I'm a feel good, hug everybody person, but I think it's important to we really need to work against polarization right now. It's really important.
I want to,
Without compromise, like it doesn't mean surrender, but I think it means look for every opportunity to
I think that by analyzing this, I've been looking for a way to be less polarized, because a lot of the instant response to the election was blame this group or blame that group, or for conservatives to dance around and say, oh, clearly everybody's had, sick of socialism and LGBTQ and trans rights, and it was easy for pundits to go, oh, wokeism is dead. The party needs to back away from woke and stop letting progressives have input into politics. All that being said, I think that these conversations are valuable for the ability to find the actual, like I think find, like you mentioned, not trying to find the divide anymore. I think that trying to find the divide for me is just trying to say, okay, here's the problem. How do we move on from there together to solve the bigger problems, when, like this problem is the stumbling block to us getting together and solving the bigger problems. At any rate, I know you got to get to rehearsal. It's 11:10, and I wanted to let you offer any last words or thoughts, and promote the show one more time, and then I will outro the show.
Yeah, you should definitely come. I hope you will come see it, James.
It's right down the street from my house. I don't think I have an excuse.
Right down the street from your house. It's kids. It's totally like we've had tiny little kids and teenage kids and graduate students and all kinds of people come, and it's short, so it's bearable, and it's a cool show. And you were also talking about like treating your show according to season, and you said, well, there's not a lot to talk about during the holiday season because everybody's doing holiday shows. And I will say that ours is a really good alternative to the holiday show. It's December 20th through the 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful. It's an opportunity to get together. It's not about the holidays. We do play away in a manger for one phrase. You'll have to come and find out why. It's not what you expect. Yeah, so I do encourage people to come see it, and there are lots of different components that could appeal, and being in South Philadelphia is cool.
All right, I appreciate you coming on the show. I'm gonna let you get out of here so that you can get to rehearsal, and please do come back anytime you have a show to promote, and we'll talk safely about the differences in society and how maybe we can address them.
That sounds good.
All right.
All right, here you guys. Bye.
And so I just wanted to talk a little bit more about you know, this kind of divide and conquer, the divide that is out there, why it might be out there with you guys, and just express that it doesn't need to be out there. A lot of the rhetoric and the knee-jerk reaction to something like this past election, or just the kind of lunacy, really, of people threatening your life or threatening your even the concept of you being human, is legitimate. I don't want to delegitimize that. I don't think that anybody shouldn't be concerned for their own health and safety when somebody literally is saying that your life is valueless or that you're less than human, because of the situation of your birth or what you believe in. And I think that the most important part of that is that we realize that everybody is human, regardless of whatever beliefs they have. And starting out there, we can move on from there and go, okay, why would they be acting this way? Why would anybody, why would I act this way? And so we have in our society, in even possibly more central to that, in being human, a drive to, in adolescent behavior, act individualistically, to set out to move away from our parents, our community, our caregivers, and to act alone. That drive, I think, is more evolutionarily locked in than a lot of people give it credit for. I think that a lot of people don't realize how much that drive has guided them, affected them, pushed them through even later periods of their life than would otherwise be common amongst other living things. Even in herd animals, or group hunting animals, this drive exists, the individualistic drive to move away from the community that they were born into. It exists so that those living beings can spread further on the earth. It's the only only thing that's common to all life, is that it tries to spread itself out. And so antisocial behavior, or the behavior, I shouldn't say antisocial behavior, because it is a social behavior. The behavior of acting individualistically, acting with individual priority, is natural, even in as much as it's annoying. And I think that if you really analyze the difference between people who are concerned about their neighbors, are concerned that LGBTQ people are free to express themselves, are free to live as their internal drives tell them to live. That people of color are given an equal opportunity to succeed in the world and to access what they want to access. That women are able to self-determine and do what they themselves think best for themselves. Um, and that they individually are able to do each individual is able to do what they want to do for themselves. I think that if you look at the difference between that and people who want to limit others' ability to self-determine, you'll find in there a genetic drive to separate their needs, their individual needs from the group needs. And you'll find that it's just an immaturity, perhaps. I don't know even if I can call it that, but a an aspect of life that has been fertilized and really uh, really I don't know what the word is, but it's been made to be more important for those individuals than for others. And the reason it's been made to be more important is because it was effective at controlling them. And the reason that we all get to that other people are community minded is because it's an effective way to get things done. Um, at any rate, uh, maybe we there's a way to bring the people who are individually minded in to bring them into the community. And no, I'm not saying go to somebody who's racist and telling you that you shouldn't exist and forgive them and hug them and invite them to dinner. I'm saying that those people who are don't think that you should exist, don't think that you should exist as a result of being driven there by social influence. And so we need to figure out how to resolve that difference in social influence before we can continue to resolve the other problems that we face. Um, I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out of my head. Maybe I don't make any sense, but hopefully I've made some sense to somebody. That's the best I can hope to do. It's 11:20 here on Tuesday. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap the show. We've been talking for an hour or so. I hope that you enjoy what you have been watching. I hope that you enjoy uh, talking about current events through the lens of social, uh, social justice, social activism, through the lens of the arts. We will continue to get together with artists and talk to them on a live stream here on Wednesdays in the morning, and talk about the shows. And we'll continue to talk about current events, and try and figure out how we can move forward as a society and really attain greatness for everyone, not just for those who think themselves part of a specific group. At any rate, please like, share, and subscribe. I know it sounds silly to toss the social media tagline on at the end of this heavy conversation, but it's the only way that we can get together and get this out there. So do us a favor, hit the like button, hit the share button, subscribe to our channels wherever you like, and you'll get notifications when we go live again. But yeah, tune in to our social media channels. We'll bring you news and updates as they come, and we talk about the news on our small social media channels, Blue Sky, on YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter, and on Facebook quite a lot. So tune in to all those spots, and you know, if you have any thoughts, join us on our Patreon. That's the easiest way to get direct a hold of us and to talk about what you'd like to see on this channel in and what you'd like to promote, what you'd like to talk about. I'm gonna go ahead and go to the title card, play the outro music. I hope to see you again in the spring. Enjoy the rest of your winter season, everybody, and really look forward to talking to you. Thank you for watching, and hope to talk to you again soon.